Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new episode of World Panorama, the only show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global news in the most concise, direct and unbiased reports. I'm Sana Khan. Before we get you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Iran hails NAM summit as coup against the West. World Panorama brings you a curtain raiser of this week's Tehran summit. Another twist in the US presidential election, Republican Todd Akin's rape comment gives ammunition to Democrats. The impasse over WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's arrest likely to drag on, says Ecuador. Fears of an extradition to the US loom. And in sports, Barcelona thrashes Real Madrid 3-2 in the first leg of the Spanish Super Cup. And straight to the story in focus this week. This week we are looking at the about to begin from August 29 to 31st, the NAM summit that's to take place in Iran. Iran giving all the hopes that something is going to come out of the summit. At least it will be able to showcase its prowess, establish itself in that particular region, showing its importance. We are going to discuss what's going to happen with several important leaders as well from about 150 nations who are about to attend this summit. We'll take a closer look at that. This week with me, I have Dr. Kamar Agha, expert in West Asian affairs. Thanks so much for joining me this week. A quick look at this report first. Efforts led by the United States and Israel to isolate Iran suffered a setback on Wednesday. This when the UN announced that Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, would join officials from 120 countries in Tehran for a summit meeting that Iran has trumpeted as a vindication of its defiance and enduring importance in world affairs.
With respect to the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Secretary General will use the opportunity to convey the clear concerns and expectations of the international community on the issues for which cooperation and progress are urgent for both regional stability and the welfare of the Iranian people. These include Iran's nuclear program, terrorism, human rights, and the crisis in Syria.
Ban Ki-moon's decision to participate was particularly fraught now because of the tension surrounding the host country. Iran has defied UN Security Council resolutions to halt its uranium enrichment and has strongly supported the Syrian government's sharp repression of an armed uprising, a crackdown that Ban Ki-moon has repeatedly condemned. There was no immediate reaction from Israel, but earlier this month, Israel has made its displeasure quite clear by issuing a warning to the UN Secretary General. Meanwhile, the US State Department spokesperson Victoria Nuland said that Ban's participation in the Tehran summit would not send a good signal. Amid all the brouhaha over the summit, Tehran unveiled upgrades to 6 weapons, including a more accurate short-range missile and a more powerful naval engine, in what appeared to be its latest response to international pressure over its nuclear program. Earlier in August, thousands of Iranians shouted "Death to America, death to Israel" during state-organized protests. Iran, penalized by tough Western sanctions, faces the threat of an Israeli or US military strike on its disputed nuclear facilities. Iran says its nuclear program is peaceful, but Western powers and their allies fear it's aimed at developing atomic weapons. Iran has been hit with 4 rounds of UNSC sanctions for refusing to halt its nuclear program. All right, let's start by asking our guest, Dr. Kamar Agha, about the evolving role of the NAM summit over these past few years. How do you look at it?
You see, actually NAM started during the Cold War era. It was a movement against basically against the 2 big powers at that time, the superpowers, And the countries decided that they will not align themselves neither with the Soviet Union nor with the America.
Right.
Instead, they will have relations with them and exploit their superpower contradiction in their interests. So this is what they were doing throughout the NAM paper. All these countries, they were not part of any military alliance.
Okay.
So that was the beginning, And it was basically started here in Delhi, in India. Nehru laid the foundation, and then it evolved during the Mrs. Gandhi's period, Nehru was the architect, and then he was joined by Nasser of Egypt and Tito of Yugoslavia, and they worked together, and then many other countries joined together. Before that, we had many other.
So now how has the role changed?
Now, Cold War has ended. There is only one superpower, that is United States.
Right.
Unipolar world has emerged. So basically, the earlier we were talking about they were fighting for the decolonization process, supporting the anti-imperialist stance at that time. Now this is the age of globalization. So its character is also changing. More on economic cooperation,
Right.
economic integration of the various regions are taking place. These countries are trying to assert themselves. They want the restructuring of the United Nations, because they say that then fourth thing, another which is very important, the rise of Asia, like emergence of India, China, South Korea, Japan. These are the countries which are emerging. Or then other countries within the non-aligned movement like Brazil, South Africa, they are very powerful countries have now emerged, So they are also
slowly and
asserting
steadily, the main objective for which
multipolar world is emerging,
That
So
is also
according to
changing.
that, they want its reflection in the United Nations also, they want that Security Council restructure. India is also trying to get permanent membership of the Security
Right.
Council. South Africa, Brazil and other countries are trying to seek. So that's how, and most of these countries are supporting this move,
Right.
They want restructuring.
Dr. Aga, let us come to the point over here. The issue that we've taken up this week is there's too much spotlight around this time's NAM summit, and it's all because of, the venue. It's Tehran. And give us a sense of why suddenly, there's so much importance, so much buzz, weeks even before the summit.
You see, it's mainly because, the Western nations, particularly United States, England, and Britain and many other countries, they have imposed sanctions. They want Iran to be isolated in the international community, where the summit is taking place in Iran. As you mentioned, more than 100 countries are going to participate. Iran is trying to show that it's no longer isolated. It has the support, it has the backing. Most of the countries want to maintain its ties with Iran, and they would try also issue a statement in which these countries would talk in the peaceful settlement of Iranian dispute with the Western nation on issue of nuclear weapon through peaceful means, not through military confrontation. So that is why it becomes very important. The venue itself has become Tehran, where all these leaders would be gathering and discussing this all these problems, including the nuclear problem, would come up there.
Okay, now that's about the venue, but about the people, influential people, important world leaders who are going to be attending this summit. The first name that comes to anyone's mind at this time would be UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Iran is one nation that has ignored, the Security Council resolutions, has also, not really paid heed to the IAEA warnings as such as far as its nuclear program is concerned. That is, in a sense, also very important because Ban Ki-moon is, in a sense, defying the Western powers.
United Nations has a role. There's no doubt about it. Security Council resolutions, which has to be implemented by the Secretary General, who is responsible for the implementation. But he would be coming there. That's why it becomes more important.
Right.
The Iranians will say, no, look, we have a person of this eminent, who is coming to attend this summit. We have an agenda. They'll get a chance to explain it to their point of view to the Secretary General. They've got a very good opportunity. I think they will. I'm sure Iranians will exploit this situation in their favor. Then not only Security Council, there are other like Manmohan Singh would be there, the Indian Prime Minister would be there, the South African head of the state would be there, Zuma would be there, the Brazilians, who are major player, who are also demanding change in Security Council or restructuring of the United Nations. Not only Security Council, they are also demanding restructuring of the international financial or monetary institutions like IMF, World Bank, because these are the countries they have now money, so they want to play greater role in these financial institutions, which are basically up till now is totally controlled by the Western nation or the big powers of the Europe and America. So a lot of things are going to come up in this
So
summit.
if we had to sum it all up, the NAM summit that we are about to see, the presence of important leaders like yourself mentioned, the presence of the Egyptian president, the new Egyptian president, first time after 1979, what are we looking at after the summit? Are we expecting anything major to happen? What's going to be the takeaway? I know it's too early to talk about this.
You see, dramatic changes normally don't occur in these summits, because there are so many point of view.
Right.
Resolution has to be passed unanimously by these. But the two important resolutions would come up, one on the political level and the other would be on economic side.
Okay.
So all these issues would be, which we have discussed till now, would be reiterated in this conference. More emphasis would be given on economic cooperation and other things, and they would also talk about settlement of the dispute with Iran through peaceful means, or with Syria also. They will issue a statement. They would like some sort of the reiteration of the UN resolution on Syria, or the peace plan which was proposed by the Kofi Annan peace plan. So these are the important things for this region, and other regions also. Economic issues would
So
be
all
taken.
in all, Dr. Kamaraga, hosting this conference is, Tehran's way of breaking sort of a diplomatic embargo that it now faces. We hope to have you next week as well. For now, let's just end it right here. With that, we take a very short break. After that, World Panorama brings you the latest from Syria. Stay tuned. You're watching World Panorama. Republican Congressman Todd Akin's comments about rape have ignited a firestorm. He infuriated many when he said that women could not get pregnant from legitimate rape. His comments have become a distraction ahead of the Republican convention to nominate Mitt Romney for the US president and put the focus on social issues rather than Romney's main message for the economy and jobs.
Congressman Todd Akin, under fire for controversial remarks on abortion and rape, insisted on Tuesday he would not leave the Missouri Senate race, despite the fact that most of the Republican Party hierarchy is pressing him to step down. In an ad released online, Akin apologized for his inflammatory remarks that have reinserted controversial abortion politics into the U.S. presidential campaign.
Rape is an evil act. I used the wrong words in the wrong way, and for that I apologize. As the father of 2 daughters, I want tough justice for predators. I have a compassionate heart for the victims of sexual assault, and I pray for them.
Mitt Romney, who had called fellow Republican Akin's remarks indefensible on Monday but stopped short of demanding that he withdraw from the race, was more definitive in a written statement on Tuesday. Romney said that today his fellow Missourians urged him to step aside, and I think he should accept their counsel and exit the Senate race. Many prominent Missouri politicians also demanded Akin give up his campaign. President Barack Obama and other Democrats also called Akin's remarks offensive.
The views expressed were offensive. Rape is rape. And the idea that we should be parsing and qualifying and slicing what types of rape we're talking about doesn't make sense to the American people. And certainly doesn't make sense to me. So what I think these comments do underscore is why we shouldn't have a bunch of politicians, a majority of whom are men, making healthcare decisions on behalf of women.
The furor put the party's focus squarely on social issues, overshadowing concerns about the economy, and could complicate the Republican bid for the White House. Congressman Aiken vowed to stay in the contest till the end against Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. But it will be a struggle for Aiken to keep up, especially after Republican campaign organizations have withdrawn all financial and political support.
While WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange battles to stay in Britain, Sweden has incensed he has belittled one of the world's most respected justice systems and questioned a nation famed for welcoming, not extraditing, political refugees. Addressing around 200 of his supporters who came to hear the speech in an upmarket district of London, Assange criticized the suggestion that Britain could revoke the embassy's diplomatic status and enter the building. Here's more.
Supporters erupt in applause as WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange emerged from Ecuador embassy in London.
Can't see why the police are stopping him from coming out, because, they will arrest him if he steps out of the Ecuadorian embassy, even though he has asylum.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange used the balcony of Ecuador's London embassy on Sunday to berate the United States for threatening freedom of expression and called on US President Barack Obama to end what he calls a witch hunt against WikiLeaks.
As WikiLeaks stands under threat, so does the freedom of expression and the health of all our societies. I ask President Obama to do the right thing. The United States must renounce its witch hunt against WikiLeaks.
State Department spokeswoman Victoria Nuland dismissed Assange's latest broadside against the US.
He is making all kinds of wild assertions about us when in fact his issue with the government of the United Kingdom has to do with whether he's going to go stand face justice in Sweden for something that has nothing to do with WikiLeaks.
Britain is refusing to grant the Australian former computer hacker safe passage out of the country and even threatens to enter the embassy where Assange has been holed up for the past 2 months, prompting a sharp rebuke from Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa.
The Ecuadorian government has never prevented him not to respond to Swedish authorities. What we have only requested is that he is not extradited to a third country.
Ecuador has granted political asylum to the former computer hacker who incensed the United States and its allies by using his WikiLeaks website to leak hundreds of thousands of secret US diplomatic and military cables in 2010.
And over to Syria now, where the scale of the current violence in Damascus eclipses the far better publicized battle that is underway for the control of Syria's commercial capital, Aleppo. Meanwhile, the United Nations reported an alarming acceleration in refugee flow from Syria on Friday, reinforcing fears that the Syrian conflict could create a humanitarian crisis, drawing in the country's immediate neighbors.
Syrian troops backed by tanks and helicopters broke into a Damascus suburb on Thursday following 2 days of shelling and intense clashes. Across the country, at least 100 people died in shelling and clashes, according to the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Meanwhile, UN observers in Syria continued to leave Damascus after a 4-month mission in which they became helpless spectators of Syria's spiraling conflict. The mission suspended operations in June after monitors came under fire, and most have already departed, leaving a small liaison office in the capital in case a chance for a political settlement to the bloodshed ever emerges.
Yes, I'm leaving. Okay, good luck. Goodbye, Syria.
On the diplomatic front, the UN in a statement has accused Iran of supplying Syria with weapons. The UN accusation backs charges by Western officials that Iran is providing funds, weapons and intelligence support to Assad in his bid to crush the opposition.
The Secretary General has repeatedly expressed his concern about the arms flows to the two parties in Syria, which in some cases appear to violate Resolution 1747 passed by this Council banning arms exports under Chapter 7 authority.
The security situation is volatile. The front lines move all the time. I saw myself when I was in Damascus, for example, where in one of the days that I was there was an incident in the morning. There were incidents throughout the day. I saw smoke in certain parts of the city. There was an incident at some point in the evening. So people talk about hotspots or red zones in the city which impede the delivery of humanitarian aid.
Syria's civil war has its roots in a mostly peaceful uprising against Assad's regime that began in March last year. The uprising grew increasingly violent as the government launched a brutal crackdown on protesters, prompting many to take up arms to forcefully overthrow Assad's regime.
New York City was rattled by a shooting this Friday outside the Empire State Building, one of the world's most famous landmarks. More on that after this break. Thanks for staying with us. Time now to take a look at some of the other international news in a quick wrap. Here's Globe Watch.
New York City police said 2 people were killed while 9 others injured in a shooting early on Friday outside the Empire State Building in Manhattan. The dead included the gunman who was shot by the police. The perpetrator was identified as Jeffrey Johnson, who used to work near the iconic Empire State Building. Johnson was laid off 1 year ago. He reportedly followed one of his former co-workers to the area, opened fire with a .45 caliber pistol and shot the victim on the head 3 times. Further investigation is underway. With the Republican-Democratic conventions around the corner, US President Barack Obama and Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney each made a push in battleground states on Wednesday, trying to convince voters to support them in November. As part of a joint military exercise with the United States, North Korean capital Seoul came to a standstill. The annual exercise mobilizes thousands of US and South Korean troops focusing on defending South Korea in an emergency. It comes amid tensions between South Korea and its reclusive neighbor in the north. Russian punk rock band Pussy Riot released their new song called Putin Light Up the Fires, signaling their intent to continue their protest against Russian President Vladimir Putin. 3 Pussy Riot members were convicted last week of hooliganism motivated by religious hatred and sentenced to 2 years in jail. The Russian president critics condemned the trial as a part of a clampdown on a protest movement. After weeks of absence, Ethiopia announced on 21st August the death of long-serving Prime Minister Meles Zenawi after he succumbed to an undisclosed illness. Meles, seen by the opposition as an autocratic leader who tolerated no dissent, but regarded by the West as a bulwark against Islamic militancy, died late on Monday in Brussels. Speculation that Meles was seriously ill arose after he failed to attend an African Union summit last month.
If you've missed the week's biggest sporting events, here's your chance to catch up. We bring you sports action.
Tiger Woods overshadowed playing partner Rory McIlroy, but Padraig Harrington stole the limelight by taking overall command early in Thursday's opening round of the Barclays tournament in Farmingdale, New York. Wielding a red-hot putter, Irishman Harrington covered his final 9 holes in a blistering 6 under par 29 to card a 7 under 64 in the first of the PGA Tour's 4 lucrative FedEx Cup playoff events. Pedro, Lionel Messi and Xavi scored for holders Barcelona, who came back to beat Real Madrid 3-2 at home in the Spanish Super Cup first leg on Thursday. After an uneventful first half, La Liga champions Real struck when Ronaldo headed in from a corner in the 55th minute, only for Pedro to break away and level a minute later. Jamaican runner Johan Blake beat his personal record by 0.6 seconds and ran the men's 100 meter in 9.69 seconds at the Diamond League meeting in Lausanne. It equals the 3rd fastest time ever, all 3 set by his compatriot and friend Usain Bolt.
Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. Superstar Beyoncé released her I Was Here music video in honor of World Humanitarian Day on Sunday. Standing at the UNGA in a sequined white dress, the artist sang her new single to a backdrop of scenes honoring the unsung heroes of disasters. The American singer donated her music video to the United Nations campaign, which celebrates the spirit of helping others. NBA superstar Kobe Bryant joined forces with Taiwanese pop singer Jay Chou for a charity basketball extravaganza in Shanghai on Saturday. More than 6,000 fans cheered as Bryant appeared with a guitar in his arms and Chou with a basketball. The Los Angeles Lakers scored 68 points in 15 minutes in the charity game. The event raised $409,000 which will go towards building and improving basketball facilities in schools for underprivileged children in China. The aging tough guys of Expendables 2 strong-armed the box office competition with the chart topping nearly $29 million in US and Canadian theatres over the weekend. The Expendables sequel that unites Rocky actor Sylvester Stallone, Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger and other 1980s stars brings together a group of mercenaries for an easy mission that turns dangerous when they seek revenge for a murder. The film even stars Bruce Willis, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris. British-born filmmaker Tony Scott, director of such Hollywood blockbusters as Top Gun and Crimson Tide, jumped to his death on Sunday from a bridge over Los Angeles Harbor. Investigators are still seeking clues as to what prompted British-born filmmaker Scott to take his own life. Medical examiners were scheduled to perform an autopsy, but results of the exam are likely to be kept confidential until toxicology and other tests are completed. That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. I'll be back next week, same time with more world news. Till then, you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/WPRSTV. Our Twitter handle is @RSTV News for the latest world news. This week, we wrap up with the French president who will forever stand immortalized in wax at Madame Tussauds in London. Goodbye and thanks for watching.